Welcome back to my channel. In previous episodes, we explored the forces that drive evolution. In today's video, we're focusing on natural selection. The theory of evolution by natural selection was proposed by Charles Darwin in his 1859 book on the origin of species. Natural selection is the process by which heritable traits that improve an organism's chances of surviving and reproducing become more common in a population over successive generations. It is the main mechanism that explains how evolution occurs. Let me explain this in detail. All organisms produce more offspring than the environment can support. Because of this, individuals compete for limited resources such as food, shelter, nesting sites, territories, and mates. Within any population, individuals vary in many characteristics. Some of these variations make certain individuals better adapted to their environment than others. These advantageous traits can be structural, physiological, or behavioral. Organisms with favorable traits are more likely to survive and reproduce, passing those traits on to their offspring. As a result, these individuals contribute more alleles to the population's gene pool. Over time, the frequency of advantageous alleles increases, making each generation better adapted to its environment. This process is often summarized as survival of the fittest, although what actually matters is reproductive success, not just survival. Over long periods, these gradual changes can eventually lead to the formation of new species. Darwin called this process natural selection. As a result, these individuals contribute more alleles to the population's gene pool. Over time, the frequency of advantageous alleles increases, making each generation better adapted to its environment. This process is often summarized as survival of the fittest, although what actually matters is reproductive success, not just survival. Over long periods, these gradual changes can eventually lead to the formation of new species. Darwin called this process natural selection. A real example of this occurs in populations of old-field mice living on islands off the coast of Florida. Island mice have paler fur than those on the mainland, helping them blend into the pale sand and avoid predators such as owls, hawks, and herons. The darker mainland mice blend into the loamy, darker soil. Researchers have traced this color difference to a single base substitution mutation that occurred less than 6,000 years ago, reducing pigment production in the fur of the island mice. Natural selection can also shift when the environment changes. A well-known case is the peppered moth, Biston betularia. These moths range from light and speckled to nearly black. On sunlit, lichen-covered tree trunks, the speckled moths are better camouflaged, while the darker moths stand out and are more likely to be eaten by birds. During periods of heavy industrial pollution, however, lichens disappeared and tree bark became darkened by soot. In these conditions, black moths were better camouflaged and thus selected for, while speckled moths were more often eaten. Visually, hunting predators act as selecting agents by consistently removing phenotypes that stand out in a given environment. As environments change, the selective pressures shift, and the frequencies of different alleles in the gene pool shift with them. Another selecting agent is competition. Darwin's finches on the Galapagos Islands, small birds about the size of a sparrow, differ mainly in the size and shape of their beaks. This variation resulted from selection to exploit different food sources, thereby reducing competition. Evolution among these finch species continues. During the drought year of 1977, medium ground finches were forced to feed on larger, harder seeds. Finches with bigger, stronger beaks had a selective advantage, survived and reproduced, leading to larger beaks, becoming more common in the population. Selection pressures may lead to one of three different modes of selection within populations: stabilising, disruptive, and directional selection. In stabilising selection, extreme phenotypes are selected against, while average phenotypes are favoured or selected for. For example, in birds, laying more eggs increases the number of potential surviving offspring, but it becomes more difficult to feed all the young. Conversely, laying fewer eggs makes it easier to feed all the offspring, but results in fewer survivors. Therefore, the optimal clutch size is neither too few nor too many. In disruptive selection, individuals at both extremes of the distribution are selected for simultaneously. Average phenotypes are at a disadvantage and are selected against. For example, in finches that have only two sizes of seeds, small seeds and large seeds, available to eat, birds with big beaks can eat large seeds but struggle to pick up small seeds. Conversely, birds with small beaks can only eat small seeds. However, those with medium beaks are at a disadvantage because their beaks are too big to pick up small seeds and not tough enough to crack open large seeds. Such birds are selected against. Finches with medium beaks starve, die, and do not reproduce. In directional selection, one phenotype is favoured, causing the allele frequency to shift steadily in that direction. Animal and plant breeders often select for a specific trait, such as breeding greyhounds for speed or creating plants resistant to disease. The Jazz apple cultivar was produced from crosses between Braeburn and Royal Gala apples. Parent plants were chosen based on the texture of their fruit, so Jazz has a crisp, juicy texture even after storage. Sexual selection is a special form of natural selection. Males and females compete for mates, passing on their heritable traits to offspring. The most well-known example is the male peacock's elaborate, colourful tail feathers, called a train. Peahens prefer males with larger, more ornate tails, which are an honest signal of the male's genetic quality and health, even though the tail is a physical handicap that attracts predators. Thank you for watching this video on the basic principles of natural selection. In our next episode, we will explore genetic drift, the founder effect, and the bottleneck effect. Until then, happy learning.